All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Conspiracy or Just a Coincidence. Sorry I'm a few minutes late. The men here, we were all having a hearty discussion, but I am very excited for tonight's show. I got two of my very close friends, NY Patriot and Odd Man. Both welcome and thank you. How NY, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thank you, actually. I'm doing very well.
Awesome, dude. Awesome. And Odd Man, as always, thank you, and how are you doing?
Yeah, man, I'm doing great. It's great to be on with you two. Respect you both a lot, and I know we're gonna have a great conversation tonight.
Yes, dude. So I'm real excited about. So the topic is Freemasonry and Mormonism, and NY's been doing a lot of shows recently on Mormonism, so definitely check those out. But I think this is a great panel because we have a little bit of everything, the symbolism side and stuff. So I did a show on Freemasonry, and obviously everyone knows we've all heard this name. But basically and you guys can jump in whenever, but my take is that this Canaanite religion that was back in Babylon doing these horrible things in these temples with prostitutes and children, they eventually get kicked out. They have to go into hiding and they pop up as the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians are known as the sea people. They travel all over Egypt. They build Solomon's temple, and then they become the Phoenicians, Venetians, and then eventually Freemasons. And that's a real quick version of who these people are, or at least what their beliefs are. I don't know if you guys have anything to add to that very quick, brief overview of them.
No, that sounded about. Well, I know earlier today, and this might be off of it, but I remember you mentioning the Carthage. Did that have anything to do with any of that?
Yeah. So this is Eustace Mullins' theory. So he says that Carthage, because Carthage was the Phoenicians, they spread out all over they dominated trade. And I think they dominated the purple trade. And that's how they became so powerful, because everyone wanted purple, which I'm sure you can add something to that.
Oh, yeah.
And why. But then Carthage was their main place, and it was like a rivalry between Carthage and Rome. And then the Romans, eventually, they got so pissed at the Carthaginian, whatever, and they totally razed the city. And historians today still, they have a general idea, but they can find no remnants of Carthage, which was it was like Rome. I mean, it was a powerhouse, and they burned it to every person that was a Carthage that was a slave, or they killed, and they demolished the city. And so Mullins' theory is that because they were these Phoenicians doing these horrible things, and that's why the Romans destroyed them because of that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting because I had mentioned, I think on that tweet, when we were covering the Mormons and stuff with Joe Smith, because he was a Mason, and there was just a lot of stories going around on his death. And, the whole thing is that we ended up getting into them with, covering UFOs at Skinwalker. And I think I had mentioned on Twitter, I just, the whole story even behind Joseph Smith's death, one, it almost sounds like an Epstein. Did the guy even really get killed? Or did they break him out and just said he got shot and killed? Back then you didn't have DNA testing. You had, I'm sure you could have just put another body there and shot his face up and said that's so-and-so, but there was the Carthage Greys that broke into the prison and supposedly killed him. And I just thought it was weird how they fit in Carthage in there to begin with. And the Greys, that goes back to the whole fucking alien shit.
Yeah. That is weird that was their name, because that's again, Freemason lore is that's one of their, maybe for the top, not the bottom guys, but the top guys, they know where their roots come from. And that's a wild connection.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Well, so could you explain what is the connection between, because I've heard this, Joseph Smith, what's the connection between Mormonism and Freemasonry? Because there is something there, and you probably would be best to explain that connection.
Well, from doing the Skinwalker Ranch series, we ended up coming across a shit ton of Mormons. And then I guess just digging into them and looking into the Mormon history. You can even go to the Latter-day Saints, I think, YouTube page, and they will have a video talking about for 5 minutes explaining how Joseph Smith was even a Mason. They don't deny it. He was a Mason, and I think the first 12 of the Quran, or whatever they call it, that's I think the highest elders kind of before Joseph Smith, Joseph.
Okay.
Now the Mormons even have like a hierarchy. They have like the 12, I think the 50. There was all these different numbers of groups of people, but the 12 is more higher up there. His original 12 were all Masons. And one of them I find interesting. His name was Oliver Crody. It's like you start getting all these funny nameplates. We have the Carthage Grays, we have Oliver Crody, we have the Lamanites, and we had Crowley with Lamb. It just seemed like a lot of weird fucking nameplates. Yo, they even had a thing called the Mountain Meadows Massacre. Guess when that happened? September 7th to 11th. Now you got Building 7 and September 11th. And it was like they just killed a bunch of fucking, named it on one dude, and he took the whole fucking rap. It's just like all these weird stories, but they're definitely they admit to him being a Mason, and you know, there's accusations that his family was as well. But like him, you could definitely, you know, there's no doubt about that, and you can find out, like, I guess the first Quorum of 12 or however you pronounce it, you can look them up, and they all were I think he picked them on purpose. They were all Masons. They're also big with bee symbolism, which seems to be like another Masonic symbol as well. You know, so I don't know, like, did that come from the Mormons or did that come from the Masons? You know, which one is using it?
Right. I mean, what's the guy's name, dude? I always forget this. Who wrote that book that now he's buddies with Tom DeLonge? I can't remember his name.
Oh, Lavenda.
Yes, Lavanda. But Lavanda wrote how Joseph Smith, when he died, he even had a pendant that like was some occult symbolism, but it was wrong, and it was supposed to mean like good luck, but instead it meant like you will die or something ominous like that. And that's what the pendant he was wearing when he was killed. It was
the sign of Jupiter.
Yes, he had like a talisman sigil with him. You're right, man.
Yeah, I had read that his brother was a Freemason, and his brother's name was Hiram, and that's Hiram is the guy. Hiram Abiff is like the Masons, next in line under King Solomon, and he's the one that supposedly gets killed during the ritual of, I think, the third degree.
Yeah,
and those guys kill him. 3 guys kill him because he won't reveal the secrets.
Yeah,
and so I just thought that was crazy. His brother was Hiram.
No, I didn't.
Weird, man.
His brother was named Hiram.
Yeah.
If you were to go, you can go. I forgot what site it was. It might even just be the Church of Latter-day Saints, and like you can just start typing in names and actually just do searches. They even own and have like the biggest genealogy bank. I forgot what it is. It might be like Family Search or something like that. That's actually owned by the Mormons, and part of the reason why is so they could track their own genealogy. You can put in Hiram, and when it comes to the LDS, there's like HURUM, HURYM, HURIM. Like there is so many plays off of that name too, that they will spell it differently. Like they use that name a lot and in different spellings. Notice that with the name Locke as well. A couple of them. Yeah, that they will. It's like they will fumble around with the name and spell it differently, but like pass it on generationally too.
Do you know when did the Mormon Church? Because there was when did the Mormon Church? When did Joseph? I can't remember what time period he was in.
By the time they got to Utah, I think it was like already the 1840s. So I think maybe the 1830s. I should know.
Was that around? Because when was the anti-Masonic party started? Do you remember that, Oddman?
Very good.
It was in that time period for sure. Yeah, it was real close.
I thought it was like 1860s, but it
might have been a little bit later. Yeah,
because I wonder like if there's that's another like just like the Canaanites changed their name, they just changed their groups, and I wonder how many of these Masons just switched to Mormonism because of that anti-Masonic sentiment that was like sweep. There was a political party, the anti-Masons party in America around that time. So I wondered if that helped push people.
That's what Lutz thinks that they did. That they, because of that, they might have said, "Oh, well, now we're Mormons," or created Mormonism, even just who knows.
Did NY? I haven't heard your shows on that. I gotta listen to them because I'm working on a show too, and I didn't even realize you guys had done shows. That's how far behind I am on listening to everybody's podcast. But did you guys run into like how he taught? Joseph Smith taught that the American Indians were descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel, and they came over here right after the Tower of Babel, and how God, he
The Lamanites and the Nephites were the two main ones that came from Jerusalem.
Yeah, on wooden submarines.
Yo, 8 boats that supposedly, and then you can go and find Mormons that actually will be like, oh, look, it actually does work. So it may have worked actually, but there was like this idea of like putting a hole in the bottom and a hole in the top, and somehow no water would come in, but you'd still get fresh air. You're gonna have everything like enclosed. They brought over. It was literally their version of Noah. And they also made sure they brought bees too. That was the thing.
What was that?
Like bees.
What'd you
They
say?
brought bees with them.
Oh, bees. Okay.
And sometimes I think they would put the hive at the beginning of the boat as well.
Oh wow!
They had these 8 boats, and I think Jared might have been his name, or Jacob. I forget who it was. Goes to God and has like this big stone. He breaks it into 16 pieces. God touches it, lights them up. Now they're light bulbs, and he puts them on both ends of each ship, so they have a light. And they make it from Jerusalem to here. And if you go by their beliefs, the actual Mormon beliefs, they really do think that like the Native Americans really came from over in Jerusalem to the United States. Yeah. There's even I mean, I have other stuff to talk about later. I don't want to keep going.
Well, dude, let me just put this in there real quick. Yeah. See, because Emma, you may have ran into this too, but I just think it's fascinating, man. I never knew anything about the Mormons. I thought I did, but I didn't. But like, they also believe that, they also believe the Native Americans, that the ones that they're talking about, were light skinned, and so there was a split in the tribe. So you had the Nephites and the Lamanites, right? And supposedly, and this reminds me of the Rosicrucian thing, where the Rosicrucians believed that Seth's bloodline was holy and obedient, and then Cain's bloodline was evil. And so, you got the fighting of the two. So they believed that it was kind of the same thing with the Nephites and the Lamanites. The Nephites loved God, and the Lamanites were evil. And supposedly God punished the Lamanites by giving them black skin. Dark skin. Yes.
Fucked up.
Yes.
And so
I don't think it was like the 18 somethings that they finally let black people in. Like that's not even like
it was.
So this is the Mormons' belief how the Native Americans got here.
Yes.
And that there was a white version who were the Nephi that were eventually they were like the good ones, and then I guess somehow the Lamanites were the bad ones. I guess But it ends up to where it's funny. The first time that they have a war, it is in the city of Boaz. Very interesting.
Oh wow!
Really?
Boaz is one of the pillars of Freemasonry. In case you don't, in the Book of Mormon, according to the Book of Mormon, their first fight was in Boaz, and I think the Nephites won that one, but eventually lost to the Lamanites, and then I think somehow the Lamanites were all of a sudden considered the chosen ones, and that they changed their ways. And technically, I think they even still believe there's a promised land for them and the Lamanites still to go to. Like, I don't even think it's in Utah. I think they believe that might be back in Missouri, which they were at one point.
Yeah, it is Missouri. I can't remember the town, but I just read that, dude. It's
might
crazy.
Be Nauvoo. They were there at
they
one
think
point.
They think that's the spot where the Garden of Eden was.
In Missouri?
In Missouri, yeah.
Oh my God, dude. Jesus. Of all places to pick, dude. I would have gone like San Diego. I don't know. Somewhere nice, dude. I mean, Missouri,
well,
not if anyone's from Missouri.
Joseph Smith's from New York. So, I mean, can you make New York look any worse?
Well, that was also the thing that Lavenda brought up, was Joseph Smith's ancestors were people that were doing sigil magic, and they were involved in the Salem witch trials. I think that they were around this area. I can't remember if they were they were accusing people. They didn't, but that was what he did, right? No. Joseph Smith was a gold hunter. He would meditate with his family. That's what they taught, to find buried gold or something like that, right?
Yeah, they found these 6. He eventually found these. I think he came across like this angel called Moroni, and either Moroni showed him where the plates were, or he found the plates first. I don't know, but I mean, this guy put glasses on and put the things inside of a hat and stared at it and basically scried, and that's how he read the tablets. And they go ahead and say that he thinks, oh, it was Egyptian and shit and this and that. If you were to take that language and look at the Micmac language, Indians, a lot of similarities. So in my
Really?
opinion, it was not Egyptian, because most people even say, like, no, this shit is not Egyptian, which I don't really think it is either. But if you were to look at it mixed like with Micmac, you see a lot of similarities. And another, this is conspiracy or just a coincidence. In Micmac, in the movie Pet Cemetery, it is Micmac Indian land that they're digging and dumping, the fucking animals that brings them back to life. So I even found that to be weird, that the language that Joseph Smith looks to have seemed to have used for the golden plates are also associated with Native Americans that have even been in a Stephen King book about having burial grounds that will bring people back to life, like a skinwalker in a sense.
Damn, dude.
I was just like, yo, it just seems all weird. Like something's off here.
Did you run into, it said that at first, this is what I read anyway, that when he was trying to translate or at least like document what the tablet said to get the book ready, he had his wife helping him, but she got sick, couldn't help. So he got his friend, his last name was Harris. Oh yeah. I think it was first this Harris guy. This is what I read anyway, because he talked this guy into helping him finance printing the book by telling him God gave him a vision that if this Harris guy didn't help him, he would strike him dead.
Oh, yeah.
And the guy's wife was getting pissed because the guy was spending all this time and money helping Smith. So the guy was like, well, to keep her from being mad at me, let me take the writings and show them to her. And so Smith finally agreed, and they lost the first 116 pages while they had it. That's what I read anyway. And it said that, he was freaking out about it, and it took him like 3 weeks or so, because he's supposed to be this prophet, and he just has these, like the seer stone that he can just translate the tablets again, but he doesn't say that. And he comes out and says he's received another angel or another holy being I forget the name, but that told him that he would not even need to retranslate those, that the angel will just give him the information.
Oh, it was a nice angel, dude.
Yeah.
He got lucky.
Right.
That was another one. Jack, I must have used your sample on our show like fucking 10 times, because there was just like so many weird things. I still have it in my mixer. I was going to hit it before, but I was like, I'm not going to do it on the show. But it was another like conspiracy, just a coincidence. The guy who scribed for Smith eventually was Oliver Crowdy again. And they started scrying, I think it was like April 8th or something, for a certain amount of time. Now it's just weird that I think, fast forward a few, whenever later, the Aleister Crowley wrote the Book of the Law on like April 7th or April 9th. It was like the day before, the day after.
Huh.
It went for 3 days to do the Book of the Law. And I was like, something with this Oliver Crowdy and this Aleister Crowley, just the Greys, Lamanites, something's up. Just something's very weird.
Well, dude, and that's another thing that's like been so, whether it's on purpose or by accident, like these groups, they change their names, or like they're, just by a letter or two. And unless you study it, like, or you do, and people have a great memory, you're not going to make these connections. And that's why, like, even as far as like the mythological gods, the pantheons, they're all the same gods. They just change the name. So, and you only if you were like a diehard into, Roman mythology and Greek mythology and Egyptian mythology, would you ever make this connection? Like, holy shit, Thoth is Hermes, or whatever whatever they like, they're the same people. But it's so, and that almost adds even more power to like our thought that this is like a global nefarious group, because they're all worshiping these same, they just changed the name though. And if you don't pay, most our people today, they don't watch, so they would have no idea that all these people in these faraway areas all worshiping the same beings.
Yeah, you know what, and I mean, to be totally honest with you, even when we came across this Mormon stuff at Skinwalker Ranch, I was just like blown away and surprised like that. It was just like I wasn't expecting it, and then where we went, like it really just blew me away. But like you said, as I started looking, like a lot of these names and stuff, like they change them around, they manipulate them, they switch the first name with the last name and last name with the first. Very weird, like name play. And They even have Saints by the Sea, which is a site that will show you, if you type in the right name, I guess, and look, it will show you people that came over from Europe to come over here to become Mormons. I mean, like, people were fucking coming over in boats from Liverpool to New York to become
No
Mormons, man.
way.
Fucking weird. Yeah. Yeah, but like
Wow.
you can even see like the names, like when their names are over there and when they come over here, they change a little bit also sometimes. Like I was trying to link Bigelow, who owned the ranch, to the Mormons. I cannot show a direct link, but there was a Lucy Bigelow who married Brigham Young and I think was involved with Joseph Smith at one point too, who, when I traced her back, went back to over in Suffolk, England. And then like the name kind of went to Beaujolais or some shit like that. But then like the weird thing of that, I looked at their family crest and it looks a lot like the Rice University symbol that Bigelow was associated with some people in his project that went to that college. And I was like,
Damn.
well, what the fuck? And there's like a Suffolk County, New York. I
Right.
mean, York, from York over there.
Well, and
We have
also
this town, is that from the Smiths? Fuck,
also the use of new was a like a Phoenician or Canaanite or one of the Freemason, I don't know, one of these groups, they would use new to like like a wink and a nod, like this is our city, this is a Babylonian city, that's why we use new. And when obviously America was founded, like all of our places are called new because it's like a wink and a nod, like this is controlled by this evil religion or group. Whether that's true or not, that was Mullins's theory about why all these places are named new, because it's like, a wink and a nod to your boys.
Now, have any of you guys ever heard of? Because I know we've covered it, but I want to know if like you guys, because I know you do more historical stuff, so you might have came across it. Either of you's ever come across like Masonry and like stuff with New Mexico and going to like the pyramids down there? No, all right. The Order of Quetzalcoatl is big on doing that. They would go like once a year, or I think something like that, or definitely for initiations. You will go and walk that pyramid at Chichen Itza. I also found that they have specific LDS tours to take you over there to that pyramid, because they do believe they do. There is different thoughts too, even among the Mormons, and I think this is when it starts playing into the ones that are more into occult stuff. They tend to believe that they came over from Jerusalem and went into New Mexico, and that that those pyramids have something to do with those Indians that came over here. And they even think, believe it or not, they actually, I think, one, they're the 5th largest landowner in the United States, and I think they might own the most land in Florida. Believe it or not, they own something about 20 times the size of Manhattan. They own that amount of property in Florida. I think they have the largest cattle herd in Florida, and possibly the oranges too. It's called Deseret Ranch, but they also say that because Jerusalem is directly across the map and it's fucking Florida kind of, they think that that's why they went there eventually, that they kind of started in Central America. That pyramid is involved with them, and then they kind of eventually went to Florida because it's like directly across from Jerusalem. But I mean, you have LDS tours that go and walk that pyramid because they think that the Indians that were the first fucking Mormons came over here from Jerusalem have something to do with that shit.
Damn. I mean, do you have something to add earlier?
Well, I was just going to say that I read that Brigham Young University has a branch in Jerusalem. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
No, I gotta look that up right now.
No way, dude.
And also I read, I don't know if this, you guys might, I mean, anyone might be familiar with this, but I was reading that when, before Joseph Smith died, I guess he was thinking he was probably going to die soon, which is kind of fishy, right? But like, he officially wrote in a paper, and they have the paper, that he was giving the whole thing to his son, Joseph Smith III. But somehow, and for a while, he tried to keep it going, but Brigham Young took it over. So you had the Brighamites, and then you had the Joseph Smiths. But Brigham Young, for whatever reason, he took the whole thing, and so now the whole church, they don't even talk about that anymore. They just, it's the Brigham Young side, but they just include Joseph Smith in it. So
I wonder, because I was
That's a good
so
point to make.
I'm sure there's like Joseph Smith descendants and Brigham Young descendants still alive today. I wonder if they're active in these churches or not. And do you either of you know that?
I don't remember if I came across any. I mean, unfortunately, with the Smith name, I'm like who the fuck
Oh,
knows?
so true, dude.
But the
There's
Young,
so many.
I can't remember. I
Also
think there
common
was some
name.
Youngs that was. Yeah, that is true.
No.
Yeah.
Dude, and that's so the Mormons,
Did
do they? Oh, go ahead, man. Go.
No, I was just going to ask NY if this is new to me, so I just learned this today, so I don't know a lot about it. But I read that so not only like that their origins specifically go back to this star called Kolob, Kolob, and so they believe that I guess the God of all gods lived there on this star with his many wives, and that's where Jehovah was born. And so Jehovah, Jesus, is the spirit brother of Lucifer, and all of us are spirit brothers too. So everyone's the same level. But I guess there was the whole deal was they wanted to inhabit Earth with people. This is their explanation of how people got to Earth. And so
there's a cartoon that they have out that is very, I think, like shows that whole scene, and you're just like, yo, this is like UFO shit from the start.
I think I've seen part of that. Yeah, and it's like, well, Jesus has this one idea. We'll go here, and we'll give people free will, and we'll let them hopefully learn from their mistakes, and blah blah blah. And Satan's just like, or I think they call him Lucifer. No, we'll send him there, and I can't remember his kind of idea about it, but you wouldn't have free will, I don't think. But anyway, supposedly God picks Jesus's idea, and that's what made Lucifer angry. So he talked the angels into rebelling. So that was one of the that's crazy, dude.
Wow, dude. There's like a whole science fiction.
Yeah, they have. If you were to go, I don't know if you could maybe look up if there's people listening or whatever, Mormon cartoon. You could listen to that. Google that. I'm not Google it. Look it up on YouTube, and you will find like probably like an 8-minute fucking like cartoon that like is them in a spaceship telling the same story Odd Man just said. Basically like them in a spaceship looking down on Earth, like, oh, what should we do? It was just like, no, this. I'm like, and like we're tying this in with UFO people. So I'm like, I'm starting to see like almost a combination in a sense.
Dude, this that looks like X-Men. Like this is like the X-Men intro in the 80s or 90s. You guys know the intro to the X-Men animated series, I'm sure. But that's what this looks like, dude. It almost reminds me of Scientology.
Right there when he changes some shit.
Well, this seems like a lot of like similarities between Scientology, like this, right? Did you see that? Did you make that connection, NY?
I thought so too. And like, I know people kind of brush it off because he says he used to be, but like, I questioned Bigelow, and like he did a lot of work with Hal Puthoff, who was at one point, openly admitted to be a Scientologist. And I mean, fucking L. Ron Hubbard was kind of like associated with fucking, Parsons. Now you got the Lima in there.
Yeah.
So it's just, does all that shit kind of have like some, underlying idea? Is it just all bullshit psyops for,
right.
cultism?
Yeah, it's so weird, dude, how all of these groups, so it's like they all do the same tactic at the they need like how Freemasonry uses like the Blue Lodge or whatever of your regular people who whatever, they're looking for friends or business connections. And same with science, you have all these regular folks, and that's where you get your donations and your dues. So you have all this like, power to run the honest side of the operation. And then when you get to the top, just like how South Park made that video, that one show, like mocking Scientology, when you get to the top, there's these insane stories that you're like, all these, and I'm sure the majority have no idea that's the belief set behind whether it's Mormonism or Scientology. But when you get up there, you're like, holy shit, dude, this is like Corey Good. And for people who are, Corey Good's a big alien guy and who's a shill, but that's like literally.
Like, oh man, I hope Jack doesn't like him.
Oh, dude, come on, dude.
I didn't think so. It was
like a diss
on me.
David Wilcox
is great.
But yeah, dude, it's wild how they're able to do, like, they use this, like, the people of wanting to belong to something as a cover to run these
It's actually kind of
super,
shitty if you think about it.
yeah, dude. Well,
It's fucked up.
absolutely. Absolutely.
And you take money from people that are like, they're giving money because they have like this belief in you or
Mm.
this belief in an idea. You know what I'm saying? And like, they think they're actually like, oh, I'm fucking up. It's really a mind fuck, and it is really fucked up if you think about it.
Yeah.
And it was another weird thing. When we were talking about Bigelow, when I was trying to dig into him, this is like another weird conspiracy or just a coincidence again.
And who's Bigelow? Just so for people who don't know.
He owned the Skinwalker Ranch that that we were covering. We covered the Shermans and the Myers. I think we showed proof, at least of the Myers. Definitely showed proof of them. It was the Myers, the Shermans, Bigelow, and then Brandon Fugel, who have owned Skinwalker Ranch.
Okay. And what
The
Skinwalker
Shermans,
Ranch?
I think,
Sorry.
Skinwalker Ranch. It's a big ranch out in Utah, in Uinta Basin. It's been known for UFO stuff, for weird sightings from cattle mutilations to Bigfoot to UFOs. But like the biggest stories about that really had, I hate to say it, but when you look at a lot of what's been printed or pushed with Skinwalker Ranch, it's going to be mostly UFOs or cattle mutilations, for honestly. Now, the thing is that when we started getting into the UFO stuff, we started realizing all those people were Mormons. But yeah, we found out that the Myers were. We found that in the newspaper that a Mormon newspaper, that they got married in an LDS church and she got buried in an LDS church.
Wow.
So they were definitely members. Brandon Fugel was open about it. And the thing is that there's a show going on right now too on the History Channel. We dropped our show the day after the first episode of season 3 started. There's 3 seasons going on, and a lot of those people are actually Mormons when we dug into them that are even on the show. But what I was getting at with Bigelow, I was trying to show, like, I was really trying to find a link, and there is a Bigelow that was a Mormon, and his name was Newham, and starting to dig into like more of the occult stuff with like Freemasonry and like Mormons. I did come across a thing. Now they have like, I don't know if this was found by their archaeologists. Now the Mormons even have archaeologists that they have out digging for shit, hoping to find like artifacts to say this is proof of Mormonism. And then sometimes things will be found and they'll say, oh yeah, see, that proves us. Now I don't know if they found this or not, but there's like this pillar, and it looks like 2 pillars, and it's got like a Hebrew written on it. And I think they found it it's somewhere near Yemen now, I think. But back in the day, the area was called Nim, Nihm, or Ni. There's a bunch of different ways of spelling it, or NHM. But on this 2-pillared like thing that they found, it has in Hebrew in sigils like NHM on there. And they think that somehow goes back to part of I think the Book of Mormon. They mentioned something about being in Nim, and they think that somehow shows proof of them being there, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, is that a play off of Bigelow, like Newham, Nim, because they do spell it so many different ways. And then I was even like, fuck, that children's cartoon that I covered, as you said, reminded me of an occult Scarlet Horse story. It was called The Secret of Nim. So I'm like, wow. Don't even tell me, like, yeah. To me, that cartoon was occult as fuck. I'm like, don't even tell me that this shit's even pointing back to where fucking Mormons are pointing at now. Damn. Like, that is weird as fuck.
That is crazy, dude. Oddman, I saw, if you.
It's nuts how so many of these things are connected.
Yeah. Dude, and I don't know, how did the Mormons also end up in Mexico? That's because, like, not that that's crazy, but I find like just how Freemasonry spread. I mean, this religion for people, especially back in the 1800s, they're they're mostly Protestants. I mean, Catholics are slowly dumping into the city to fight the Civil War, good old Abe shipping them in. But besides that, it was mostly Protestant people who read the Bible. Not many people were probably, in my mind, were willing to say, oh, this guy saying he's talking to angels and finding gold, sign me up. I'd love to join that church. So how is this church able to grow and spread so rapidly?
Well, there was, I'm assuming, if you follow the timeline with the religion, Odd Man, I don't know if you know any of this. I don't want to like take up the whole thing. If you chime in, if you do. I do know, like, it went from New York. I think then they kind of hobbled over to Ohio. Now, I don't know if is there a Kirkland? It might be Kirkland in Ohio. They start a bank, actually.
Yeah.
And pretty much just like, I'm assuming the same thing that the Federal Reserve did when they've shown it on TV. The same thing Joseph Smith was doing was when he was showing what he was backing with.
Mm.
It was one box was actually real and the other shit was fucking fake.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like he was already saying that he could back fucking money and they were printing fucking money and he did not have the fucking money to back it. And eventually they fucking came after him. And then they kind of like headed to Illinois and then like headed to Utah. And it's even, you can find that supposedly in newspapers back in the day, people were like moving to Utah with the money and people didn't know yet in Utah that the money was no good. And they were like using it to buy up the fucking property, where people are even getting busted trying to use the money going to Utah to like buy stuff. Supposedly there's tales of like even the printing press supposedly falling out of one of the wagons on the way to Utah because there was like this great, I think, wagon trail of them all going to Utah together. It was like fucking, I don't know, 150 wagons and all these people, some crazy shit that's long.
Wow.
They actually used part of the Pony Express trail, I think, which makes me even question that. Cause I'm like, if these motherfuckers were anywhere near people traveling with fucking important messages, who knows what the fuck was going on with that then?
Yeah. Well, I know they were a force, dude, because they had like their own militia and I wasn't in Illinois.
Navajo militia. Yeah.
And like, that's why I think they were like going to break Joe.
2,500 fucking people.
Yeah. It was
military. The government came to them, 8,500.
Yeah.
And basically nothing happened. They didn't do shit because they had like they obviously probably would have won, but you were losing. You were taking the chance of losing half your army to some lunatic religion guy. So I don't think like they actually did anything. I think when it kind of came down to it, nobody did anything and that was it. And I think Lincoln, tried to fuck them in a sense by like making it a state or a territory for the Indians, or somehow I think he made that an area that fell under federal to like, I don't know if that was to fuck them or whatever, but it kind of looks like it might've been. I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I think that's how they even got the permission to even go in there and like, tell them like, you guys got to cut your shit because the government even wanted to go in. And I don't think they did anything because when they got there and realized how many people they had, I don't think they wanted to risk anything and just nothing got done. I think it was like a stalemate. Like nobody did anything.
Damn, dude.
When he got killed, he was running for president.
Really?
Yes.
So he was born 1805 to 1844. Wow. Not a long life, dude. That's 39 years.
Well, you're a scam artist most of your life. I mean, it's not gonna last,
dude. Holy shit. He was assassinated in Carthage, Illinois. Did you already say that? I know you said
the Carthage Grays, and I'm sorry, I should have explained that was because of the town Carthage also.
Dude,
this is what I'm getting at. It's his nameplay. So much nameplay, it's ridiculous, dude.
Wow.
I tell you something that I read that I thought was weird is like, so they have the huge, magnificent temples. You've seen them. A lot of times they have like Freemasonry kind of symbolism on the outside and stuff, but they're really like the architecture is really cool. So they don't actually do the church services there. You have to be only the people going through the whole secret rituals, which are a small amount of the Mormons get to go in those.
Yeah, that's the funniest thing is that most Mormons are not going into those nice temples. They're not even allowed in there. Most people don't even know that. They're not even. That's like for the upper echelon, like those higher up things. If you're a regular Mormon, you cannot just walk into church in those things.
I saw this old school documentary. I think John Brisson mentioned it the other day. God Makers.
Okay.
Oh,
So
I watched some of that yesterday.
that's good stuff, man. I really liked it. I mean, it's
Yeah, I
cheesy
haven't
because
listened
it's
to it
old,
since.
but it's still good information.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
But they keep showing the guy, whoever was the president of the LDS at the time in the 80s or early 90s. He says on there, he's like, to get to, I forget what they call it, but if you want to go into the big temple and go through the rituals and stuff like that, you have to go through, it's a lot like Masonry. You have to basically be vetted very well by a couple of different people. You have to be paying your dues and have always paid your dues on time. That's a big deal. And he said on that documentary, that's the only way to go to God or to be with God. And I'm like, so you're telling me that the people in these small churches, God's not there? Do they know that? It's just insane to me, dude. And then
That's
They
if
know that.
and then if you go through all that and you go through, and the women, I think it's when they get married, because basically if you're a woman and you don't get married, you're nobody in the LDS. But you pass through the veil is what they call it, and
No
it's
way.
these big white sheets, and it's like it's all symbolism.
I don't know. It might be called the bloodletting ceremony. I don't want to be wrong and just making it sound like a edgelord.
Ooh,
That might be
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
something letting ceremony.
Well, dude, and I was just thinking as well, like these Canaanite, they did these rituals that the Freemasons eventually took with symbolism, but they were so big on like sex. Orgies was like the biggest thing. And I'm not saying all more, but the many wives thing, and like you hear all these stories of child abuse, of horrible, and that's probably we're just skimming the top of what actually goes on because they quash it in their community. But that's another weird connection, is like this group is obsessed with sex and having sex, marrying young children, just like they did in this in Babylon. It's like a very another odd like connection in my mind.
That's funny that you mentioned the Babylon, because like that is even part of this. I think even ties into Masonry with Mormonism, is the idea of Nimrod as well.
Mm.
The Nimrod does come up in their stuff, and the thing with Nimrod is that the reason he was like so powerful is because eventually being passed down through people, the skins that Adam wore was given to Nimrod.
Right. That made him invincible. Yeah.
Skinwalker.
Dude, fair point. Yeah. But yeah, that's what and for people that don't, Nimrod was I covered him. He was the king of Babylon, ahead of all these occult ceremonies, who got chopped into 14 pieces. And that became, the Egyptian story of Osiris. And those pieces were sent to the priests doing these horrible things in these temples as a warning, like, you better knock it off. And all it did was they went underground. And that's the mystery, where the mystery schools come from. And the reason why Nimrod was so powerful was, I think, Cush, who was Ham's son, which is Noah's, right? Noah got the clothes. He dies and he passed it to Ham, who gave it to Cush, who then gave it to Nimrod. And that's what made him so powerful. Hopefully I'm doing that. That's correct, but something like that.
Yeah, no, I think you were right with the way it got transferred down. Yeah, it was
Damn,
like,
dude, but I didn't think of that though. The Skinwalker and call it. That's very that's a funny connection there.
Yeah, I was just like, well, I mean, the guy is kind of like a Skinwalker. I mean, I don't know, but I mean, they do go back to that with Masonry. Nimrod is big in Masonry as well. So.
Yeah, and they have the aprons that are the skins, which they say symbolizes like the covering of God or something like that. But one thing I was going to mention quickly too is I heard this one really old lady in that documentary who had grown up in Mormonism say that they had blood atonement. And if you join Mormonism, but you never follow the laws, you can't like quite commit to it, or you just are not that good of a person in their eyes, it's better for them to kill you and your blood purifies your sins than for you to go on living like that.
Wow.
So I thought that was crazy.
And that's in
the
Mormon church or the.
Yeah. And I'm sure they would say that they don't do that now, but This lady was saying in the 80s that she had numerous family members die mysteriously.
I
So
wonder what if this, and one of you I'm sure knows, is because that theory, that brotherhood in Freemasonry is they teach you never share these secrets. You go to the death, even if you kill your own brother, even if you have to for your Mason brothers. And that example is in Civil Revolutionary War when George Washington captures the loot of a British Masonic temple, and he returns the wealth to his enemy that is killing Americans. He returns his chest with a flag of truce or whatever. But did you read that anywhere? If the Mormon Church has a similar, like a blood oath of counting on your brother or whatever you want to call it, a loyalty.
I think there is something when you do get, like I said before, I can't remember the name, but like there is like something. I think it's kind of like to that degree. My opinion, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, they're already like that's even evident by the not snitching on anything that goes on. You keep it within this cult, and that's just like the Masons were doing forever. Yeah. Like
sure.
they would literally sell like I just said, George Washington was the people that were killing your soldiers. You give them back wealth because they're Masons. That goes above your loyalty to your country. And that's crazy as well, because I mean, they weren't globo homo then. So the fact that these people were turning their backs on their nation for their oppressors, it just shows like how powerful this group was. Because I mean so take that even on like the macro scale, even bigger than, like presidents and all rules could be set up where you're showing loyalty to your enemy, your people you're fighting a war against or whatever.
Yeah, I wonder if, I think we've talked about that. I wonder if that goes on today, these secret deals, these world leaders supposedly hate each other, but do they really, Yeah. But one thing I did remember reading was it was a former Mormon. She had been married in the church. She was explaining that whole ritual and everything. And she said that they had to recite that. She said it was pretty much word for word what the Masons, I forget which degree it is, where you have to swear secrecy, that if you break the oath, you'll have your eyes gouged out, and all those horrible things. Supposedly the Masons don't do that anymore since the 90s, but she said that they were required to do that when they're getting married.
Wow, dude.
Damn.
That's like a smoking gun in my mind.
Yeah.
Because dude, like, and that, to make these promises, like Oddman was just saying, dude, the Mason, like they would promise you to rip out your, like, I mean, they would go into detail, dude. Like, I'm going to rip out your eyeball. Your entrails will be pulled out.
Yeah, they do some shit like that in the OTO.
Like crazy stuff. Yeah. Like, dude, aren't you guys just
send the fucking dogs on you and some shit like that?
Oh, what was that?
Yeah, they say, I don't know, they send the fucking hounds the abyss. Even in the OTO, every time I did an initiation, I think that maybe the threat, it was neither the same or maybe they added an extra one or two things in there, but it was like always this long list. And
dude, that's crazy though. Like for a fraternity group that's just like, cleaning up the side of the road, adopting highways. What if you're just cleaning up a highway? Why do I have to promise that you're going to shove a hot poke up my butt if I tell us what we're talking about in here? Like that sound like I would immediately be like, this is a little weird, guys. This is getting a little odd. I don't know why we're going this route.
I got to do to give back to the community.
Yeah, like so I just want to pick up the trash on the highway. I don't want anything shoved up my rectum, please. But just very, clearly this isn't just a charity group if that's the promises you're making. What was
that's actually a really good point.
No, dude, it's insane. But what was, and I think I first heard this from Oddman, who mentioned you when you talked about was the eye of the pyramid in Masonry. Does it really mean the butthole? Is that what that means? Oh. Have you heard that before? Because I think you talked about something like this, Oddman, haven't you?
Well, where I got it was from Kenneth Grant. He's got that one. I can't remember if it's called The Hidden God, but it's his book about Aleister Crowley, and I think he worked with Crowley, if I'm not mistaken. Like he was a I could be wrong about that. Maybe he worked with somebody who was trained by Crowley, because that would make him pretty old. But
Yeah.
anyway, he's a big, huge Crowley guy. And he claimed that Crowley was going into the desert with somebody. I can't remember who it was at the time. It might have been.
I think so. He raped him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was his.
And he's claimed that, and he's like, the Masons know, and he says plainly in that book, and he's not like putting down the Masons or anything like that. And I can't remember word for word, but anyway, the Masons have known this for a long time, that the anus is the all-seeing eye. And then, you've got that one quote by Crowley that doesn't really prove it, but it's like, how much more glorious is the mouth of Horus than the eye of, no, how much more glorious is the mouth of Isis than the eye of Horus? And people say that he's talking about the butthole. I don't know.
Holy crap, dude.
Who knows, man? Because you
Odd
can
as
take
hell.
that so many different ways. But that's what Kenneth Grant says, dude.
I do. Well, that's what Mullen says too. He said that the eye at the top of the pyramid is referencing like I forget what term he doesn't say like the dark eye, but he says something like that, like the dark something. And that's what that means, is that that's how like it's a symbol or like a wink, like, hey, when you get high up in the occult, we shove things up our butt like they did in the Canaanites and in the temples, lots of sodomy. And so it's like, again, a wink. And that's what so I was just wondering if you ever heard something similar, and why, like in your time of, in the OTO and all those things.
Well, there's stuff that in occultism, and even stuff that I've read, there's like some weird shit. I mean, this problem with this book though is a lot of it's fucking off, but there is some real shit in there. There's a book called The Secret Rituals of the OTO, but like really most of it is fucking completely off. But there is some stuff that is in there correct, and I've seen other shit that like correlates with some of that. But in my opinion, this is just me. A lot of stuff that is written down as sexual isn't sexual. I could see that butthole being a good symbol, because in my opinion, when you're doing magic, you are going in the outdoor, in a sense. Kind of like Led Zeppelin's, in through the outdoor. So, I mean, I could see the asshole being something that resembles that.
Interesting. Dude, I never heard that expression before. So Zeppelin has a song that's called that?
Well, In Through the Outdoor, I think it's an album.
Oh.
Yeah. So, but like, I could see that as like, kind of like, I've been experienced this life through these lenses. Now I'm going to experience through, like, let's say my pineal gland back inside my head, or out in the spirit world. You're going in,
right.
To me, that's
yeah. That's an interesting. That would make sense, because
so it would be like I could see a butthole being making sense with that in a way also. Like the whole idea of the Scarlet Whore, I don't think it's sexual at all. So that's why I'm saying, who knows? That butthole could just be a play on words again, just as a symbol. Or they could be right. For all I know, that could be some sex magic ceremony. They are actually fucking each other in the ass. Who the hell knows? I mean, I wouldn't put that past them either.
Well, that's because this is, again, I like you or have more primary experience. I just read, and so Mullins, he talks about how these Canaanites, they were obsessed with sex. I mean, like these orgies constantly, and that's like he uses the evidence that at the French Revolution, when after this, they're boiling people in butter, they're doing these horrible things to women and children. They would go to the cemetery every night, and they'd have these massive orgies. And they'd be digging up bodies and doing all this stuff. And that's how he ties the Freemasons to this Canaanite Babylon worship and these sex rituals, because this all stems from that cult. And so that's how he ties it into all this sex obsession that we have going on today, is because it's this Babylon. So that's why I was wondering if you ever heard that in your secret society, because if there was that connection, that focus on sex, that they seem to value so much.
Oh, well, I mean, the OTO it's known to be a sexual order anyway. And they do believe in, like, they get into the whore of Babylon and stuff with Crowley. So, I mean, I'm sure there's people doing stuff. Like, I also it's just my opinion. I do think a lot of things in magic, like, all right, we want to talk about, like, those stories that you talk about with those orgies and stuff. I could see that being a side effect of people being manipulated by real magicians, or people misunderstanding magic and taking it the wrong way. And then that's what you end up with. you end up with people who are just mimicking something and completely wrong, or a psyop in itself. I forgot where I was going with that, but I mean, like the OTO is very sexual, and I think it does that for a reason, because I think it's really to pull you away from the magic instead of towards it. It almost kind of makes you like a willing participant in their shit.
I
like
mean, you have anything to add
you're
about
not really, you're not doing your will, you're doing somebody else's at that point.
right? You have anything to add about orgies and sex rituals?
No, nothing that I can think of. I wish I did, man. I wish I did.
Unfortunately, I mean, I can't say I've ever seen one either at the OTO, but I've heard stories that at their Notica.
Damn it.
The Notica, I was hoping they have every like 2 years. Those things.
So I think though it's like not too far of a stretch. Like we have become a hyper sex. So like again, I'm pulling all of this from the same guy, but their goal, these Masons and I'm not saying the Mormon Church, but these secret societies is to bring us to this pre-Adamite state where we were like animals, where we just banged like bunnies, no like consciousness. You did whatever carnal desire, whatever felt good, you did it. That's what they want to return us to, and I can definitely see evidence of that coming back. I mean, America is more degenerate than it. You even look 30 years ago, they wouldn't recognize the world that we're in today.
No, not at all.
I wanted to ask both you guys. So what the Masons, that we can like end on this question or whatever. But so the Masons are, they're not as prominent as they used to be. And I mean, I'll get your take first, but so where are these groups going? Like, or do we still have these secret societies in your opinion? Are they, because it's not in my mind, it's not like the Masons are, that's for like boomers and old people.
Yeah, man. Well, I think they're still out there. And I think maybe in these certain towns, you're going to have like local politicians and businessmen who join the big Freemason lodge to work their way up and network. And I think part of Freemasonry has always been in the modern age, just networking and trying to it's not who you know, it's who you blow, but it's kind of both. It might be both. Who knows? But like, I think it's always been kind of a networking thing, but like, I don't think the need is there as much anymore because, for one, I think you got all these NGOs, these non-governmental organizations, and I think they've taken the place of some of this networking because they figured out a way to get tax exempt status and and get government grants by the billions and all that stuff. So I kind of feel like that may have taken the place of some of this secretive stuff, but I'm sure to a degree it's still out there.
No, I think that's a fair assessment. How about you, NY? Because you were in a secret society recently, but I don't did you sense that there was like power players there, or is it more just like, people that are interested, maybe a little lost, maybe a little bit of both? What's your take?
From my experience of being in one, I think it's really no different than if you're out on the streets where it comes to the pyramid scheme of who knows what down to us knowing jack shit. It's the same thing in there, unfortunately. At my lodge, I'm sure there was probably a few higher ups that might have been important and in the know of stuff going on. But I'd say most of that lodge really are, from my experience, were not like, I don't ever see them how they become magicians.
Right.
They're too far to one side. They're like kind of handcuffing themselves, really. They're not removing the handcuffs. They're not doing the shadow work. They're kind of latching on to the vices that keep you from having magical experience.
Interesting.
That's my opinion. And I think that's all by design. So
like, you mean like by design to just have a group of people that provide cover? Is that what you mean by design?
Yeah, sheep or, I mean, well, getting into that, I guess, to the whole idea of like, are these things important? Or are they really doing anything? I do still think that the Freemasons do still have, I think that they're still involved. I just think like they have different orders that they kind of flip-flop around with or use for different things or go under different names. Like, the whole thing with like, I mean, you can have Masons that are really Mormons right now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And they're just saying they're Mormons. So I do think that they still have a hand in what's going on, but like I even think like the OTO and other orders do have like kind of like all their hands like in something kind of like whether they're kind of like, I don't think anybody's like really probably going against each other unless there's actually good people. But like the fucked up ones, I think they all kind of have like their own, probably suit all ends for them. But like, you know, maybe they have their different ways of doing it or their different views of what they would like the end to be. But I think it all is in like just like degrading the human race until it's just like,
right.
Basically, like just God steps in and is like, hey, we got to redo this over again.
Yeah. Well, dude, and that's also another like fair point is these secret societies, I'm sure they still exist and have members and all these things, but you don't need to hide it anymore, dude. If you want to, you know, be as degenerate as you're champion, you're promoted, you're put on a TV and said, wow, look how strong this person is. So people that want to get together and do these orgies and these magic, you could be a Satanist and come out and say, I am a practicing Satanist. I practice occult magic or whatever you say. And you won't lose your job. Nothing bad would happen to you, right? Nobody would these days would blink and they would say, okay. What'd you say?
That, yeah, you can't. Yeah, you can't say anything about shit like that now. That's still, it's like, you know, just
right.
Say something, you're a horrible person.
Yeah, right. So like, I think that's, I mean, I just thought of that now. Maybe that's also another reason why these groups don't exist anymore, because there is no need. There's no, in the ceremonies to generate that energy or whatever. It's in music videos. It's on the TV. You have millions of people watching. You don't need to have a secret cult that meets at a temple, because you can just do it through people's phones or their computer or whatever.
I even said one time recently, and then I'll let you go. I don't want to hold you too much. I said recently, I think on, I don't know if it was my show or somebody else's show. I mean, in my opinion, the human race, I mean, as long as you're like you're saying, attached to like the old, you know, if you're looking at anything electronic or TV or news or whatever, music, movies, in my opinion, at this point, I really do think the human race has kind of been already indoctrinated into occultism.
I agree.
It's understanding of it. So you've become the slaves of it. So you become the slaves of it. You don't understand it, but you've been indoctrinated because it's been used on you. You see the shit. You just don't know what you're looking at.
Right. Kind of like a first level, like a Blue Lodge Mason. You see it. You're told, oh, this is like, we're told this is just art. They're just eccentric artists. And then the Mason, they'll tell them, oh no, this just means providence. Just means just be patient. When that's absolutely not what it means, but you won't find that out until you've already sworn away. Your entrails will be ripped out through a stick if you want to leave. So then it's too late.
Yeah, the pinky up your ass.
Yeah. So any last thoughts, NY, and then we'll do Odd Man before we sign off the show?
No, honestly, I had a great time coming on with you guys, man. I really loved it. So, I mean, I was happy to come on, and I love talking about this because we just covered it recently. So it was interesting for me. And it was like I said, it was great to come on with you guys.
Thanks, dude. And then Odd Man, any last thoughts before we sign off the show?
No, not really, man. I concur with NY. This has been awesome. Always great to talk with you guys. And it's been a really fun show, man. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome, dude. So where can we'll start with you. Where can, everyone find you? We had about 18 people watching live, dude. So that was our combined powers. That's huge for me. So thank you for bringing our three powers together and for being on the show. But I mean, where can people find you and all those good things?
_ the Odd Man Out on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to find the show, it is theoddmanout.podbean.com.
Love it. And NY, where can the people find you, my man?
First, I just want to give a shout out to Eric. Guy's always in my chat. I don't know if he's one of your fans too. He listens to both of those shows.
He's not.
He's in there.
He's one of the new 18, dude. I saw Eric in the chat.
He's like in every live I do. Awesome, dude. So I just had to give a shout out to him. You can find all my stuff on most major podcasts. Spotify, Apple. I think it's even on Podbean. All the Google, whatever, all that stuff, BitChute, Rumble, and we do have the Tour and More, which has my show, the Occult Rejects, and Lux's show, and sometimes Lee's show, is on there on that one YouTube channel.
Love it, dude.
So, Tour and More. You can
Well,
find
guys,
all of us
thanks
there.
for everyone in the chat, and I'll put all their links in but I'm sure most of you guys know, but I'll put their links in the show notes. And thanks for, I hope you guys, I learned so much. So I hope all you guys learned something. And I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Oh, tomorrow I have a communist coming on, a communist guy who's into conspiracies, whose viewpoint is that I don't even know what his viewpoint is, but he was talking about Operation Gladio, and so I'm excited to see. I've never heard of a communist that's a conspiracy person, so I'm interested to see how this goes. So that's tomorrow at 8:30, and so I'll see some of you guys then.
Nice.
Thanks for listening, and we'll talk later. Peace. Here we can.